Mage Storytime, Episode 23, Kidnapped Kitties and Chicken Genocides. This is the continuing story of the Iron Goldfish, a party of role-players who awakened as mages. Our cast includes Alwi, who manipulates time with his phone; Bard, a mind and spirit mage who uses superheroes as his gods; Critical, who improves the luck of others through his own pain; Handy, a correspondence-using thief who steals items at long range; Kitty, who empowers his stickers and cats with spirits; Tello, a postmodern mage who uses a hodgepodge of skills to manipulate forces and matter; and Weeb, who uses his life skills to enhance his martial arts and Chinese medicine. Alwi hadn't been getting a lot of sleep lately. Almost every night he was visited by the spirit of Afrofuturism, taking the form of the Black Panther. After a misunderstanding with a black-furred cat goddess, Alwi had decided he was the new Black Panther, and the spirit found it kind of hilarious. So he had taken to visiting Alwi at night and training him in his sleep. Alwi was not very good at the training, and the highly formalized martial arts training resulted in Alwi learning how to brawl and fight dirty. At least he was managing to fail in a roughly upward direction. During this same time, Kitty had also been unable to sleep. Not for nocturnal visitations, but because of a moral quandary. A first for our group, no doubt. Things in the Euthanatos were coming to a head. As we had found out when we first met them, there was a sect of the local Euthanatoi that participated in what you might call preemptive karma. They found someone who was going to do something horrendous in the future, and took them out before it could happen, thereby sparing their soul the negative karmic weight. Most of us thought this was a really long way to go to justify murder. Kitty had been investigating them. At least that's what Dee Dee, the cheerful Euthanatoi goth, said he had been up to when he disappeared a few days previously. Shortly after, he tried to go to the Dints in Kansas and get access to the Doom Baby we had given them some time before. We were shocked that he had disappeared and asked Alwi why he hadn't noticed. He said he just thought his brother was being quiet. Anyway, now the baby was missing, and the Celestial Chorus, who had had it last, was on the verge of going to war over the incident. The main suspect was a Euthanatos splinter group, who may also have something to do with Kitty's current whereabouts, and it was up to us to figure it out. On the upside, Dee Dee was pretty sure that the leader of the rogue faction was somewhere in Plano, Texas, just a few minutes away, and they had narrowed down his location to one of 4 safe houses the tradition liked to use. One near a comic shop, one near a prep school, one near the highway, and one by a cemetery. It was nice to have a solid lead for once, and we set out immediately to go find our missing friend. And maybe save a baby, if there was time. We started at the comic shop, because nerds. We checked it out with our werebear friends who guarded the node, and they told us they hadn't seen Kitty lately. Nor did they know about a group of Euthanatoi siphoning energy from nearby like it was a neighbor's Wi-Fi, but they would be very interested in us putting a stop to it. If we wanted the people to live, that is. If not, they could take care of it pretty quickly. When we went to the house, a nondescript lady opened the door. We asked if she had seen someone who looked like a cross between a panda and an Ewok lately. She hadn't seen Kitty, she claimed. We asked about a baby, and she tried to show us pictures of her grandkids, but we weren't interested. When she finally asked who we were and why we were asking, Bard flashed his wallet at her too quickly to be read and muttered something about police. When she seemed skeptical, Weeb stepped out from behind the group in his magically transmuted police officer uniform.
"Oh!" she exclaimed. "I didn't expect you till next week. The party hasn't started yet. Is this a free preview, hot stuff?"
Rolling with it, Weeb started to gyrate and thrust towards her, and Bard spun a story about the guy we were looking for being our manager who owed us back pay. She seemed to believe that story. At that point, Alwi finally thought to pull up a picture of Kitty on his phone and showed it to her, but she hadn't seen him. She did know that he was trying to join the Order, however, something we had studiously avoided mentioning, but he hadn't made a kill yet, so the induction ceremony hadn't been scheduled. At least she hadn't heard of it, but why should anyone care? We mentioned that his disappearance was tied to an event that may start a war between the Euthanatos and the Celestial Chorus, and she got very quiet. She gulped, realizing the severity of the situation, and said that normally they did their ceremonies near cemeteries. The next one was scheduled for tomorrow. We thanked her for the information and left, Weeb pulling singles out of his underwear. Thinking that we had a day to work in, we decided to check the other 2 sites before going to the cemetery. The first house, near the highway, was a bust. The piled-up newspapers outside said no one had been home for days. Likewise, the prep school location had nothing interesting. Well, the guy we talked to there seemed a little overly interested in the high school track team running around the neighborhood while we talked, but that was just creepy, and there's nothing illegal about being a pervert. While we were looking around, Bard thought of contacting Kitty's spirit guardian, Baron Samedi. He drew the Baron's sigil and stuck it in some grave dirt, but when a spirit contacted him mystically, it wasn't a laughing black god, but a fiery-haired goddess. She introduced herself as Maman Brigitte, the Baron's wife, and said that her no-good husband was out partying. But if we wanted to save our friend, we should hurry up. Criminal was coming. Despite her warning, we still had to wait for the next day, when we knew where the death cultists would be. We approached the cemetery just as the sun was going down, and as we pulled up we could see a car some distance ahead with black chickens running all around nearby. That seemed odd, as did the fact that some of the chickens were apparently being lit on fire. We saw several figures, some of whom we recognized. 2 women and a man grabbing what looked like to be Kitty with a bag over his head. Behind him we saw the leader of the band, one Jay Shoemaker, walking along carrying a couple of chickens. Dee Dee had told us about him. As we watched, Bard and Critical saw spirits start to rise from graves all around. They stood up from their plots and started to bow towards the living mages. That was unsettling. Then the ghosts started to coalesce, and even those without spirit magic could see the hazy outlines of them in the sudden, unseasonable fog. As we watched the strange procession, Ollie whipped his phone out and set a save point. Then he extended his will, hit the pause button on his phone, and caused time to slow to a crawl. And then he charged. He didn't take kindly to people messing with his little brother. Ollie got about halfway across the open expanse between us and the procession when he saw one of the women guarding Kitty slowly turn and place her hands on our 2 companions. And then they started to move with the same speed as Ollie, if not a little faster. Somehow, they were manipulating time just as he did. At that point, Ollie decided his odds were not good. He pulled out his automatic pistol, stuck the barrel under his chin, and fired. After a brief flash of pain, he found himself back at the save point, standing with the party as we watched the strange procession guiding Kitty. "Hey guys," Ollie said, "I'm about to do something stupid." Having warned us, he whipped out his gun and opened fire on the startled enemy. Seriously, don't mess with Ollie's little brother. Several of his shots struck home, and the mages visibly paled as they countercharged. Also, some of the ghosts seemed to have gained solid form and were joining the sortie. Bard called out, "To me, my hex men!" and possessed himself with the spirit of a powerful telepath. And then he started hurling mind bolts. When ghosts are attacking en masse, the time for subtlety has long passed. Their leader shouted out something about, "You cannot stop justice!" We resolved to show him that we could. He also said something to the effect of, "He's joining us! He chose this!" But we decided he was a liar in addition to an evil murderer. As all this shouting was going on, Bard, our resident spirit mage, Tello was homesick that night, got a better look at the individuals guarding Kitty. He recognized a spirit standing behind the man. It was Yama, the king of death. Then he saw Greek and Norse trickster gods, not Loki, more minor ones, standing behind the other 2 figures. The final one, the leader, Jay, had a visibly inverted and distorted avatar standing behind him. Then he recognized the black chickens. It pays to have a background in religious studies if you deal with spirits. And he remembered something Kitty had told him about his patron, Baron Samedi. Or rather, Samedi's dark side, Baron Criminal, a ruthless murderer. The dark, murderous aspect of a death god / psychopomp, who was summoned by burning black chickens. We were so screwed. Bard relayed the cheerful news to the group, who thanked him profusely. In response, Weeb started to dance and chant a Hawaiian haka, channeling his magic through the rhythm. Bard tried to delay them with psychic blasts, to mixed results. Critical tried grabbing one of them, drawing him close and whispering a geisha into his ear, but it didn't take. Critical pouted a little. By this time, Weeb finished his dance, sticking his tongue out with a shout. A greenish aura of light started billowing around him, raising his hair with its flowing force. With his life magic, he reached out to all of the chickens standing in the vicinity. Then, figuring that without the sacrifice they couldn't summon Baron Criminal, he sucked the collective life force out of all of them, leaving all 20 of them dead husks on the ground as their energy coalesced into a ball in his hand, which he ate. It was definitely outside the box thinking, but it worked. He disrupted their summoning attempt. As the chickens fell, the leader started to curse violently, but decided to try it anyway and started shouting for Baron Criminal. This apparently took his attention, because Kitty, who had been docile to this point, seemed to shake off whatever mojo he was under and started to struggle against the bonds keeping his hands behind his back. One of the women ran up to Weeb and tried to stick him with a ceremonial knife. It probably would have done more damage than a regular blade if it had hit, but Weeb had no intention of letting that happen. He dodged, trapped her arm between his arm and chest, and gave a mighty wrench. A sharp crack, and she dropped screaming in pain. Taking advantage of the hole in the enemy's forward ranks, Bard launched a mind blast at the chanting mage that took him square in the back, knocking him to the ground, stopping the ritual, and giving Kitty the chance to make a break for it. Our party saw Bard's shot and cheered. The other party saw Bard's shot too, and Yama decided to deal with this upstart threat. The mage Yama was piloting dashed over to Bard and swung at him with a large spectral hammer, but Bard moved quickly for a large man and ducked out of the way. This left Yama in the perfect position to get bashed in the back of the head with Critical's blackjack, which knocked him out. Mages may be ludicrously powerful, but we're still only human after all. We're basically glass cannons. That left only one death mage standing. For her, we had some guns. Why get fancy when simple will suffice, right? A few concentrated volleys and our antagonist dropped, bullets in her shoulders and leg, and one of Handy's arrows sticking in her gut, although we did stop shooting her after she fell down and cried out for mercy. We weren't necessarily keen on killing people we didn't have to. That was their thing, after all. Those of us with spirit magic saw as the gods essentially said, "Screw this, we're going home." And we were left with a confused young woman who had no idea where she was or why she was hurt so badly, along with a few unconscious people. We also saw the inverted avatar of the leader start leeching the life essence from its mortal counterpart. As it started to bend down and suck at the essence of the mortal, Bard summoned his most powerful gods. A gauntleted hand appeared from nowhere and dropped onto the avatar's shoulder. "Not so fast, sport." And the embodiment of American justice and freedom appeared and beat 7 shades of hell out of the twisted avatar. Well, actually it was 7 shades of something else, but that god would want us to watch our language. The god promised to lock it up someplace safe, and we turned to our stricken comrade. He had no idea where he was or why we were there, and was freaking out about the baby being taken by Joe. We assured him that everything was taken care of. We found the baby in the leader's car, and it wasn't long before we had rounded up the amnesiac victims of spirit riding, saved the baby, and gotten Always Brother back. Not a bad night's work. As a last thought, we put a damned LoJack on that stupid baby. That should keep it safe. Is the Doom Baby truly safe? What new friends will the Iron Goldfish make? And who will our heroes justly slay next? Find out in the next Mage Storytime.